Hello all, my name is Venkatesh and I work as a Salesforce developer. And in this video, I would like to explain about doing an in-house CICD process for your Salesforce deployments. You might have used change sets or like any third-party managed packages like Blossom, AutoRapid, or GetSet to do your deployments, Salesforce deployments, right? But in this video, I would like to explain how you can do the same set of deployments with version control system and then the CI orchestration for your deployments. So for this video, for this demo, my setup would be uh, VS Code for your code development, where you build your code, like where you develop your code, where you make code changes like trigger changes, class changes, or any Visual Force components pages or Lightning components pages. Uh, any set of metadata that you want to change. You use your VS Code because it's a very powerful IDE that is supported by the Salesforce. That's where the Salesforce recommends all the development should be done or can be done in VS Code, and all the innovations are being done in VS Code. If you're new to using any IDE, I would strongly recommend using VS Code. And even if you're using like any other IDEs like Illuminated Cloud, uh, Mate, or Force.com ID. It's a easy transition to VS Code. So I would strongly recommend it. And the cool thing about VS Code is it's not like a regular IDE. It's like a web page. Like you can see all kind of web shortcuts or web features that you can do on a web browser. You can do the same with VS Code, and it got a lot of plugins, a lot of extensions that make developer lives very easy. And this is our code development tool, and this is our Git, where we use the Git language to run the commands for creating a branch, for cloning a repository, or merging to a branch, committing to a branch. So all set of your version control operations are done by Git language. So here's this Git language that we use, and then this is the bitbucket. So bitbucket is essentially a version control system where your source code resides in this bitbucket repository. This bitbucket has there is no hard rule that you have to use bitbucket. You can use GitLab or GitHub or whatever version control system that your company uses or you are familiar with. You can use any other version control system. So I just picked bitbucket because my company recommends using it. And then this bitbucket, like this Docker, I don't have to learn anything about Docker. This Docker sits in the bitbucket. So whenever we run any commands on bitbucket that runs on the Docker containers that sits on the bitbucket. So there is no learning in uh, implementing these commands, but just be aware that the Docker containers are in bitbucket, and whenever you do the your pipelines that runs from the Docker container. And I'll come back to what your pipeline is. Now finally you deploy them to your Salesforce target. So my VS Code is my developer IDE. So whenever I make changes, I make it here. Now I push those changes via Git to my Bitbucket, and when I try to deploy it, it runs the deployment commands, runs the Docker container, and deploys it to Salesforce. Right now, within Bitbucket, we have something called pipelines. So what pipelines does is, so whenever you make any changes to your code and you commit it to your Bitbucket, you can define a pipeline process where when our code is committed to the repository, it it triggers a set of commands which we can write as part of the configuration file, and it runs that set of commands and pushes those changes to Salesforce target arc. This is called a pipeline. Pipeline is nothing but a set of instructions or a set of scripts that has to be run within Bitbucket. That is what a pipeline is. Now In this case, what we do in this diagram, we show that when you're pushing your changes to your Bitbucket, what it does is all your committed changes will be now pushed to Bitbucket repository. Now, whenever you commit something there is an auto trigger that fires and runs the script what we define in the pipelines. So that scripts will run on the Docker and then deploy it to Salesforce. Now, what is a Docker? Docker is nothing but a web container where you can run your applications no matter what the configuration your system has. Let's say I have a Windows system, right? Now I can create a Docker container that defines the specifications. Let's say my system is Windows, right? Now I design an application that runs on Linux, right? Now either I run my application on Linux or I can virtually run the application on a Linux simulated environment, right? So this Docker, what it does is when I install it in my Windows machine, what it does is and specify like what configuration I'm looking for and what are the packages, what are the repositories, all those stuff, like whatever I need for my application to run, I can define in the Docker container. Now, whenever you run your application on this Docker, it checks the Docker image file and then sees what configuration is required to run that application and then runs that application with those specifications. So that is nothing but a Docker image. At runtime, this Docker image becomes the Docker. So the image is where you is like a template where you define what your system process, like what your system specifications are, and then you run your application on that container. Now that deploys to your Salesforce target arc, right? Now let's get back to what we're looking for. Okay. So if you're new to GitHub, right now I'm using GitHub to get my code. It's free, subscribed. There's a trial or like free version of GitHub where you can host your repositories. It's like a public account, public site, so you can create a sign up and you can create a new account. So I opened github.com. If you never use, then just sign up for GitHub, and then once you sign up, you can see you'll see this page, github.com, right? Now I follow some of the people and I create some repositories. I see all these things, right? Now that's fine. You don't have to worry about that. Now once you sign up, you enter the force.com. That's where Salesforce gives commits all the changes or puts all the GitHub source codes in force.com repository or project. And once you enter there, just search for Bitbucket. Should be Bitbucket. You see two packages here, right? Sorry. You see two packages here. One is for two repositories actually. One is for Bitbucket org. One is for Bitbucket package. So I'm not covering about Bitbucket package. I'm covering about Bitbucket org. And once you click on that, you see a set of files, a folder structure, which is called as manifest of this repository. So what is a manifest? Manifest is nothing but a set of let's say folder structure that you need for in this case, let's say for Salesforce, when I say manifest in Salesforce language, it means that the folder structures that is required to deploy your project to a target org, be it sandbox or production. So in this, my manifest is having one source code, source folder, and then have one ML file. And then in the source code, will have in the source folder, I have the classes package.xml. So this entire thing is nothing but a manifest. Right now, I have this source code in the GitHub. Now I need my VS Code so that I pull all this entire folder structure into my local directory and then make changes there and then commit my changes, right? And now before that, let me show you. Yeah. So let me open the bitbucket.org. So I have this bitbucket repository, right? So what I need to do is now I need to clone this. So you can click on this clone command where you can download this entire folder structure, and it provides a link of this project structure. Now just click on this icon, which is nothing but a copy of this repository. Now, if you need to have a Bitbucket account, like how you signed up to GitHub, sign up to bitbucket.com. If you don't have Bitbucket account, so once you sign on, then it will, then this is what you see on your Bitbucket homepage. So I created already these 3 repositories, but I will start creating it again. So what you need to do is you create a new repository. Now, when you create a new repository, you have an option to import repository. Now, when I click on this import repository, it asks me for the URL from where I need to import. So just Control V, like paste the copied repository site from GitHub into the Bitbucket URL, and then you can put whatever repository name. I will just use like test demo, and then you can click it as private property, doesn't matter. Then once you import your repository, it takes some time to import your repository. This is my test demo, and you can see all the structure what you saw in your GitHub. You can see the same folder structure over here, and it has a README file. So I'll walk you through each and every file folder. So I got my email confirmation that the test demo repository was completed. Now, assets, don't worry about it for now, at least for source. It contains all your source code along with your package XML. A package XML is nothing but an XML file that contains the metadata of your source code. So in this case, when I go back to my source folder, I see classes, only a classes folder, which means that I have only Apex classes in my classes folder. So this is my Apex class, and that is XML file for that. So I have 2 classes, one metadata and 2 classes of the same metadata. Now, if you go to your package.xml, you see this is an XML format. Now you can see the types here. There is only one type, it's Apex class, and it's for 2 members. So package.xml defines your it's of the part of your manifest, like it defines what your source code metadata type and what are the members of your source code. In this case, these 2 are the members, right? This is about source folder. Then git ignore is a file where you want to ignore the changes you have done to any metadata type. Let's say here, this is like by default structure that you have. So let's say that you changed, you created a permission set, and let's say as part of your permission changes, your profiles are also changed, right? So when your profile is changed, or let's say you set a field level security to any custom field, right? Now, as part of that, your profiles will also be changed. Now, you don't want to import your profiles and deploy them to your target org, right? So in that case, whenever you pull the changes from your source org, it pulls all your changes, including profiles. Now, if you specify those profiles not to be included, you can write a profiles line, and then that will not commit those changes to your Git repository. So this is where your git ignore file comes in handy. This is a license file, and this is README file. README file, nothing but a set of instructions like what this is all about. This is very useful. Please go through it because it got all neat explanation of what you have to do for setting up your Bitbucket account and running your pipelines, right? So this is where the ML file, this is where the pipelines ML file. This is nothing but a configuration file where you specify all the list of scripts and commands. Now there is some set of explanation about bitbucket's pipeline YML. You can go through that in Google, but on a high level, I will just explain a couple of the lines. So here, this is all like pre-configured thing, like it comes with like this. So you just have to add whatever changes you want. So here you don't have to change anything. This is a Docker image file where it says the bitbucket in the bitbucket account. This is where the Docker image file is, and this image file will have all the required setup system configurations required for the scripts to run. This is the pipeline. So this is the pipelines that we have to define. So default is nothing but this pipeline will run for all the branches. If you don't have any branch specified, like here I didn't specify anything for any branch. If you want to specify anything for any particular branch, then you specify the branch name here and then write all these steps there. So what it does is only for that branch it executes these steps, otherwise it executes default. In the steps you have scripts. Excuse. What are the scripts that you need to run? So these are all the commands that you need to run, and these are all the things that that you need to run. So this is on a very high level. Now what I will do is I'll just go to the source code and then clone this. So I'll copy this. Now I'll open my VS Code. So if you're a first-time user, you can see all these icons over here. If you're a first-time user, you go to your this icon, Salesforce extensions, and then type in for Salesforce. So you open this icon where it contains all the extensions that are available. So Salesforce package extension pack. So install this Salesforce extension pack. So it will install all the required configuration things, including Salesforce CLI, DX, everything. So once you install this extension, and enter Control Shift and P at the same time, so it will open a drop down, not essentially a drop down. It will open a toolbar where you can search for any tool, any commands, right? Like let's say I want to clone my repository, right? You can search for this git clone. Now, when you search for this git clone, what it does is it runs the command in the backend. You don't have to enter the command. This is like UI version of your commands. So when I enter git clone, it asks me the repository URL. So when I copy the URL like from here, when I do a clone and copy this, you see this git clone and then URL. I don't need the git clone part. I just need this HTTPS part. So for that, so I'll just remove the git clone part here, and I'll press enter. So it asks me the directory location, like where do I want to save this repository in my local system. So I can select anywhere I want. Let me just do June. So what it does is it runs the git clone command with the URL. If you're logging it the first time, it may ask you to log into your bitbucket account, but since I already logged in, it's not asking me. It's one-time login. So it logs in and it pulls all this folder structure into my local system. Or I can click on open that folder. So what it does is you can see all my folder structure is copied into my local system. You can see test demo. This is where it got created just now with the same folder structure. Right now, once I clone this, let's say I want to make some changes and want to commit those changes to my GitHub or like Bitbucket account, and then source code to my source code, and then deploy those changes without manually going and deploying it. As soon as I commit those changes, my deployment pipeline or my pipeline that is configured on the repo should fire and deploy those changes, right? So let's say here, I just press enter here, right? Whenever you save it, you can always save this, control S. So you can see this is, okay, let me explain this. So these icons, this is the folder structure of from where you're working. Right now I'm working on this test demo project, right? I'm in this folder, so it shows you the structure of this folder, and then whatever editors you're doing. Right now I open two tabs. One is for welcome, just close it, and then this is my class tab. So all the editors that you are using, all the tabs that you're using, you can show it over here. And this is nothing but search. Let's say I want to search anything about any field, any piece of code that I want to search in this folder. I can use this search option. This is where your source control is. So this source control, if I click on that, right now I made a change to this class, right? So it you can see that one change was made. So this is the beauty of VSCode, where it's tightly integrated with the version control. So whenever you make changes, it tracks those changes and specifies it in this version control system. This is nothing but debugging. This is about your extensions. If you want to install any extension, you can use this icon. Now I made these changes. Now I want to add these changes and commit these changes and push my changes. So these are the steps that you need to do when you are committing anything to your repository. So adding changes is nothing but, let's say I made changes to my class. Now I have to add those changes because there is a prerequisite to commit your changes. So before committing, you need to add the files that you want, that you have changed. Let's say I stage this, and so there is a direct command which is commit. If I click on that, it asks you that you'd like to automatically stage all your changes and commit them directly. Stage is nothing but add them, add all your changes and commit them. So as I can click on S, when I click on S, what it does is it adds all my changes and commits in the same command. It asks me like commit changes, and let's say I'm working on any feature, right? So this is some kind of a feature or bug fix, say bug fix, right? So I add the commit message here and I press enter, so all my changes are committed there. Now if once I commit the changes, I have to push. Commit is nothing but committing your changes is nothing but you started logging your changes in your version control. Like in this case, the previous version of this class has no space, and then now the next version has a space, and my user ID changed it at this time. So all this information are logged in your version control system when you commit those changes, but you don't see it. When I say commit it, you're committed in your local repository, but you don't see them in this folder because you have to push those changes. So I committed my changes, but I have to push my changes. So again, go Control Shift P and then Git push to. So when you enter the Git push to, it asks you the folder where, or the GitHub or the bitbucket or the version control system where you want to commit or push these changes to. Since I logged in, I cloned from this bitbucket. This is by default coming in here. So Odin is nothing but the default GitHub or bitbucket or the version control that you logged in. So if I click on this, it runs the command, push command behind the scenes. So it is done. I don't see any error message. If you see an error message, it shows you with a pop-up here that this command has failed. Now if you check it here, so this is my source code, right? Now here you see pipelines here. You see this here, the source code was changed 2 minutes ago with bug fix. And you see the message here that my class was changed and initially is added. So I forgot to explain about the more important part, the pipelines, right? So right now I didn't configure anything. So whatever I push to my repository, whatever I pushed my changes to the repository, it pushes them without any scripts to run, right? So now let me configure that pipeline. So with this, what happens is whenever I commit or push my changes uh, to my source code or to my repository, what it does is it will by default run the scripts to deploy those changes to my target org. Let me enable my pipeline settings, this repository. So let me enable this. So you have to enable, go to settings and then enable your pipeline settings and then go to pipelines. So once you go to your pipelines, you could not find any pipelines. So once you enable the pipelines, you have to set your repository variables. So I will try to use my existing one. There is a nice, I mean, if you go through the README file, it will explain like how do you set those your variables. So let me go to here and then go to this one which I already created. So if I go to the settings and now my repository variables, so I have all these 4 variables defined. Now in this document explains like the README file in the folder structure explains like how do you set these variables. So I will explain like what these variables are. So I have to deploy my changes whenever I commit to my repository to my target org, right? But I need to authenticate my target org with any user ID so that I can run the deploy command. So these are the things that are required to authenticate to your deploy to your target org. So this is my username that I need to log in, and this is the consumer key that is required to authenticate this user. So you see that we are not using any password, username, password here. We are using consumer key like OAuth way of logging in, authorizing to my target org. So there is also a trailhead module where how to set up your consumer key, like building a connected app. Now these are nothing but your key and IV values. So what these are is right now we are using JWT, Java Web Token Authorization way or process to log into your, to authorize to the target org, right? So when you authorize JW like Java Web Based Token process, you need a certificate, a self-signed certificate to log in. Now this article also helps, I mean this README file also explains like how to do the JWT based flow. So here you're not using your credentials, but you're able to log in using these three these parameters, right? So this key and IV value, so you generate a self-signed certificate and you upload that certificate in your target org, and the certificate, to sign that certificate, these key and IV values are act as like username, password, you can call it that way, so that the certificate is accessed by the right person. So these are all like settings that you need. Now let's say, so since I already configured it, what I do is I will just do the same steps what I did before. So I will just copy this and I will open my VS Code and clone this and clone the repository here. I'll just click clone and then enter. If it asks me, so I will just put desktop, then test, and then the repository location as desktop. Now I will open that in a new window. Now in this, I will make some changes to my class. I'll save the class changes. Immediately you can see the Git icon with one number, such, which means that one of my tasks is changed. Now I will stage my and commit my changes, which means we will stage and commit. The commit message is bug fix again. So once I commit my changes, what I can do is I can just get push to. I need to push my changes. So this is the repository that I want to push it to. So if you see, I pushed my changes. So since pipelines are already configured, now the pipelines will come into action. You see it here. See, this is a bug fix which I just did like a few seconds ago. Now, if you open this pipeline, what it runs is it runs the scripts or commands that we define in the YML file. Remember in the source folder, we define the YML pipeline YML, right? So whenever you enable the pipelines and set the pipeline variables, like whenever you enable the pipeline settings here, once you enable, you set the repository variables. So these are all the variables. Now this is the variable name, this is the value. So the variable names you use in your pipeline. If you go through the pipeline file, you can see that the variables are like decryption key, decryption IV, and then consumer key is here, the username is here, all the $sign. Variables are nothing but your configuration variables that you define here, like your setting variables defined here. You can also specify the variable names, values here. So here, let's say I want to deploy directories like my source directory, right? So you can specify it here as deploy directory as this. So in this ML file, what it does is, like I said, this is the Docker image, and these are the pipelines scripts that you need to run. So what it does is it exports all the required things, and then what it does is this is the decryption of your server key. So remember we provided key and value as a variable. So this key and variable along with your this. So this is the encryption file, and I want to decrypt this file and put it in this folder with my key and variables. Using this key and variable, it will decrypt the server key and puts it over here. Now this server key is used to sign the certificate that we already uploaded to target org. Right? Once I do that, it uses this server key with the consumer key, and then this URL with this username. It logs in. This will authorize my. This will you can also set your alias, like this org is UAT in my case. You can grant access to that URL, and then you run your SFDX force deploy command like this. In this case, I want to deploy this directory to this URL, I mean to this org with test level. Like here I specified only run specified tests, and then run test is only my test. You can also put a local test. In that case, it runs all your local tests. So these are all the commands that gets executed. If you go to my pipeline, you can see that it is in progress. So if you open this, it shows you all commands here. So if you see it here, it exports all the variables here. Then these are all the, see, this is encryption, this is granting, and this is right now it is performing the deploy steps. So you can log into your target org. You can log in your target and track the deployments over there too, right? So every time when you do a deployment, you can check the deployment status. And in the status, it is deploying 2 components and it's waiting for the test to run. So it will deploy these 2 components and it will run the test I specified in this command. So you can see it here, it is running my specified test. You refresh the page. Okay, the deployment is done. So if you see the date is like 9:42 and it is the same. So if I go back to my pipeline, it sees that it is successful, right? So if you see this list of commands, so It is building the setup like from the Docker image and then exporting all the commands, and then it creates a directory, and then these are all the plugins that are required. Then it decrypts the file, the server key file, and it authorizes using the URL. If you expand this, you can see it is authorizing with my ID, with my key, my username, with my consumer key. So once the authorization is successful, it runs this deploy command. So you can see the deployment progress. So it submits the job in the backend, and it will deploy the components and run the test scripts. So this is how you do your CI/CD deployment, CI/CD process using Bitbucket and VS Code as your code editor. So you don't have to deploy manually. Whenever you commit any changes to your repository, you can configure your pipeline so that they run for you and then deploy them, and also it will run your test classes. Thank you guys.